open discussion about single and side pieces because in our day and age, we ain't really single. Well, we ain't being single. We have a lot of stuff stored up on the side. And what that looks like is like we just having stuff stored up, occupying space, time, and energy. And and it's taken away from the resourcefulness, purpose, and God. So over time, we have separated from finding and cultivating our purpose with finding a man and trying to cultivate them, or finding a woman and trying to fulfill whatever lustful desires or pleasure that you have. So I want to kick off with this question: is what does side pieces look like? Like when you hear the word side pieces, what do you think about? What is side pieces for you?
Well, I know like for some people, they think that you have to be in a committed relationship to have side pieces, which is not the perspective I come from. I always think that if you are having any sort of, I call them situationships, that you, just because you're still like searching or you just don't know, so you're afraid of that commitment to be tied down to one person. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have a relationship off to the side, so you still have a clear way to find another.
Right.
And that's options, right? Your bench, you sometimes you don't have your starters or whatever, or you're still trying to figure out who's supposed to,
I think a side piece is a distraction from what you're truly looking for, from what you truly want in a relationship or a commitment. So when we're talking about side pieces, to me it's like we're talking about somebody who is taking your full attention away from a relationship or something that is being built, whether it's between you and God, whether it's between you and another person, whether it's between you and yourself. It's that person or that thing that is taking your focus away from the main concentration that you're supposed to be concentrating on at that point in time. Mm-hmm. Because it's something on the side. It's something you can literally be like, all right, I'm going this direction, but wait, I see this. Let me toy with this a little bit. All right, back on the right direction. Oh, there's another side one right there. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's just like a distraction or a stray away from where you're supposed to be directed or your path is supposed to go.
Mm-hmm. So when I think about side pieces, it's a coping mechanism. You're using this to cope with something. So just like a testimony side to this, growing up, all I saw was side pieces. My daddy had a side piece, my mama had a side piece, my cousin had a side piece. So it was only right that I find a couple. So that's all that I saw growing up. So that's all I knew. So I was like, this is what it is. You can't keep a man because you can't trust him. That's all I learned growing up. And so for me, because that's all I saw, that's what I did. And so I found myself, whenever I got into a relationship, I was evaluating, all right, do I really want to take this serious? Because then I'm going to have to let some things go. Whatever it was, I was like, is this really worth it? Now, thankfully, I did let some things go because I got into a relationship and then I got saved. And so I think, if I wouldn't have gave up some things, then I wouldn't have been in a place that I'm in now. However, what it did, or what I found myself, because I practiced it for so long, I was practicing it while I was saved. So it's like, it was a habit that needed to be broken. And so I remember talking to, I call her my spiritual cousin, but people used to be like spiritual mama. But I was talking to her one day and I was on the phone and I was like, man, I feel like the lady with the 5 husbands in the Bible. And none of these men are my husband. And so and she laughed, but I was like dead serious because I had all these men and they were only fulfilling something in me. So it's raggedy. But it goes to the next question is, what is your side piece? What do you find yourself giving attention to that's taken away from your purpose, that's taken away from things that you can be doing to advance the kingdom and advance yourself as well? So is it a person? Is it a friend? Is it alcohol? Is it laziness? Because, sometimes when it comes to, I'm going to tap into it later, but with laziness, you ain't doing nothing. Mm-hmm. So clearly it's something. So my question is, and you don't have to speak out loud, but what is your side piece that you realize that you have? Or what are some trends that we see in the culture that are side pieces?
I think in the culture right now, social media is a side piece.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is, man. Like it's saying a lot. I was thinking about both of your perspectives, and it is yes but it's crazy because back in the day, a side piece was not a focus. It was just something or somebody. You like you said, you going on. Oh, that's the one. But I got old girl over here just in case. That was a side piece. Like I don't see side piece as serious, but in this context, I see how it can get serious. Or for one person, like if it's two people, obviously. For one person, it's a side piece. For another person, it's like it's a full blown distraction. Because to me, a side piece ain't really. I don't see it as a distraction, because it's like the married dude that says, "Yo, I'm married, so you ain't about to get me full time. Yeah. You know what I mean? I can talk to you when I can talk to you, but I'm going home to her. We ain't even trying to do that. So it's not a distraction. Does that make sense to you? It's something you doing, but it ain't no And then from the female perspective, or even the male, that is the side piece. You juggling and you can't when he called or when she called, then you got to jump up. But you know what I mean? Like I don't know that it's a full blown distraction, but yeah, for the culture.
Yeah.
I think social media is definitely a definite side piece.
Adding on to social media, I think especially in our culture and a trend I've been seeing, or I don't think it's really been a trend. I think it's just always been there. But like pornography,
yes, sir.
And masturbation, or just sexual bondage in general.
Yes, sir.
Like I think, and like the evolution of social media, like definitely, I feel like pushed that.
It did.
And as far as like people don't think of it being a side piece, just because it's virtual or just there's a screen, right? But off of your definition and to your point, it's definitely a distraction.
It is.
And takes your focus. And I know that's a thing that's especially taboo in the church that people don't talk about.
That's true.
And that like really strangles some people.
It does.
And that's definitely like a huge thing when you think about side pieces, that like you have to be able to attack or know how to navigate.
Yeah, I think that's good. It kind of flows into like what voids it filling. So like you talked about pornography, it's fulfilling a void, that you feel. So I was like, man, when I was thinking about my own side pieces, I was like, man, what am I searching for? Like, why am I keeping these things stored up in my life? And so for me, I realized what I wanted was love, a desire to be wanted, and attention. And it wasn't necessarily that I didn't get that from my family. I just feel like I had some kind of abandonment issues. Like I always want a desire to be wanted. So that's why I pushed so hard for things. And then, when it failed, I'd be like, dang, bro, I just got abandoned, rejected out here. Why? But I had to ask that question for myself, like, what am I searching for? And so the same with pornography, the same with fear, doubt, and everything else. And some people just feel like it adds no value. Like, I guess, what do we say when people just like, they don't see the value in, having a serious relationship, or, why do I not do it? So that was a question that I had. When people don't see the value in it, just like, whatever then. So it kind of leads into, you had already tapped on it about energy. Everything that leads, whenever you're talking about side pieces, you got to juggle 11 things. If you're juggling women or men, you got to make sure, you don't send the wrong text. You got to make sure you don't call them the wrong name. Like, it's taking so much energy in you. And I laugh because I have a best friend. He been juggling women since we were in high school. Hopefully he don't see this. But he been juggling women since high school. Still to this day. And I be like, yo, man, you putting all this energy in to maintain these women. And I'm like, why? But he just don't see no value. And I guess because he's been hurt.
Right.
Once you're hurt, it's like, man, I don't heal from this. So I'm going to just do whatever I want to do.
So off of that point, at least like what I've heard from people, is that it takes a lot more energy for them to be vulnerable with somebody and build that actual relationship. So I guess like in their mind, it actually takes less energy to have it at surface level, or at surface, value. Yeah. Instead of, like you said, getting hurt and having to actually dig deep in yourself and share a part of yourself with somebody else can be very, if like emotionally exhausting.
Yeah.
Take up a lot of energy. That's why some people are just like, no, I prefer just keeping it here because energy-wise, you know.
That's true, because it's easy for him.
It's easier.
It's crazy though. It's crazy that all of what you're talking about is a trick of the enemy, man. Like, you know what I mean? Because first of all, when we talk about healing, I recently got this revelation. A lot of times we expect the person who hurt us to heal us, right? Or the thing that hurt us to heal us when they can't. Only God can. You know what I mean? Like, and so I use the example of a doctor. The doctor, a surgeon, does not heal you. He fixes the problem. He initiates hopefully the healing process, but that process is God's and God's alone. You know what I mean? So we're trying to fill a void, and it's interesting how you said it. Your friend, he's juggling women. It's interesting how you shared your own testimony. At the end of the day, all of us were, and we don't want to believe it, we were all built literally with a void that can only be filled by God, right? But the trick of the enemy is trying to make us think that what we don't have is a problem. It's the same thing the serpent did with Eve. In the moment that he tricked her mind to think that she was missing out on something, is when he had her. That's where the bondage actually begins. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we all got problems. Yeah. We all got situations. We can start with families. We can start with, molestation. We can go, the list goes on. And that's not to negate the problem, but the main thing is that problem or that person can't heal us. Yeah. Only God can.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about how, because somebody may ask, and probably my best be like, what's the value in me not?
Right.
What's the value in me removing my side pieces? Like, why do I need to remove it? And Quay, you was like distractions, and that was like my first point. When you remove those distractions, then it will now allow you to fuel, your purpose, because all it's doing is just keeping you entertained for a moment, and then whenever you feel like you lacking in something, you run to it, but it's for a moment, like it don't last. Also, it helps you to identify your purpose and to walk in your purpose. And so whenever you eliminate those things that are completely taken away from time that can be into your purpose, identify it and delete it. So the next thing is, whenever you remove those side pieces, you become a reflection of Christ completely, because they're allowing you to recognize who he is and who he already says you are. So Sharia made a good point, and I love this. She was like, having multiple men or women in your life just requires more layers you have to break down when you get married. And so we don't think about that. Like, just like when I was saying, it showed up when I got saved. I've been practicing it for so long, and if I didn't, I just think that I can just change it instantly. No, it don't work that way. You got to go through a process of releasing it and healing from it, and etc. So if y'all had anything for that point? Anything? Okay. So another thing that I like, I said was, our culture is wandering through life with no direction, wandering through women, wandering after men, straight into soul ties and adding on layers. And so I know we don't talk a lot about soul ties, because I found out about soul ties like maybe a year or so after I was saved. But we don't recognize, like, once you lay with somebody or lay down with somebody, you're not only taking a part of them, but you're taking a part of the people they've been with. And all those spirits flow within. You don't know what they're attached to. So healing from those soul ties and recognizing those layers that are being added on when you continue to maintain these side pieces, or things that are void fillers, is what I call them.
Can I ask you a question about that? In that vein, how do you, talking about value, how do you help somebody understand the value of not making those soul ties?
Making those soul ties. Elaborate.
So I think I got it.
I don't got it. So you elaborate.
I'm trying to say it. I'm trying to say it in that way. I have to say it straight up.
So basically, to me, what you're asking me, and I'm gonna say it straight up.
Yeah.
To me, what you're asking me is, how do you get somebody to see the value in that not having sex before marriage is important?
Oh.
Ultimately.
You say no. I'm like, I did not tell you to release from soul time.
So
You're good.
So one thing that's always stuck with me, was I remember hearing someone say that once you every person that you lay with, imagine that every person that you ever laid with, you're married to. And you have to be with them for the rest of your life. Because having sex is a covenant. It's a bondage. There was no, as far as I know, there was no paperwork to be married. Having sex was the marriage part of was the marriage part of the old school, right? Of back in the day. So being able to have sex with whoever right now, you're marrying each and every individual you're meeting. And so for me, it was always, okay, so if I have sex with this person, do I see myself with them for the rest of my life? Do I see myself being with this person? Is it because to me, in God's eyes, he is watching me and saying, okay, do you think? But I've made this covenant. Now you're connected with this person, and which is why the soul ties exist between the two of you. Because you've created a bond that you can no longer break until you ask God, hey, Lord, I need you to remove these soul ties from me. I need this. I need you to cleanse me. And you have to be able to find the strength in yourself to say, this is not it for me. I'm sorry. You are not the husband or person that God has destined me to be with, so I can't be with you.
So I like that, but what's the value? What's the value in that?
Can I interject? We have some comments going on Instagram Live. Can I put some in here?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Blessed I Am 0913 says, it's a process that we must learn. Hey Kev, what's up? Says, purity is important. We are the temple for the Holy Spirit. And those are just some of the comments that they were saying for the value.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I think that would go back into tapping into recognizing what God says about you, what Scripture says about you, and learning about yourself. Because how can you give yourself to someone if you don't really love or know yourself? And one thing I thought about was, how can I ask a man to, respect me and do all these things if I'm not meeting my own requirements? That was my whole thing. So, I'm requiring you to do 11 things, but I'm not even applying them to my life. So that was a thing for me. Any other comments?
Well, that's the biggest thing. Is you gotta change your mindset.
Yeah.
Right. Is the hard part, especially for men. Honestly, you with your boys, you with your family, uncles, all that stuff. You see them with 10s, 11, 12 women coming in every family cookout. You know what I'm saying? You see all that stuff. It's dang, you the man or something like that. You know what I'm saying? But for me, it was a
back then.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
They call that pimp somewhere.
But for me, I always took it seriously because for me, it was always the fact that I had somebody in my family that was diagnosed with HIV. And now has full-blown AIDS. You know what I'm saying? He had those women, he had those multiple people. But for me, it hit home for me because I knew somebody was like that. So for me, even I knew that when I was 15 years old. So for me, I knew I wasn't gonna move around like that. But at the same time, you got those partners around you that they got 20 women, they got 30 women. They keep bringing around you bro, they bad. They talking about you, they want you and stuff like that, man. But at the same time, you gotta change your mindset and understand that it's inside of you that it's not always about the sex. It shouldn't be always about the sex. You can't build. I always had the mindset: if I can't build a relationship with you, what's the point of being with you? You know what I'm saying? There's no point of us building anything else in the future if I can't see myself with you in the future. You know what I'm saying? So even reading scripture, thinking about Adam and Eve, where God made He made both of them together, right? But when you think and you go back to soul ties, I told somebody this a while ago. When I want to teach my kids as far as soul ties goes, you're teaching yourself, you're pretty much building yourself up to have sex with multiple people, right? But at the same time, you're sharing yourself with other people so much that you're just having that energy off of them and just building that up. It's then you become numb to whoever you're being when you normalize sex in your relationship. I got a couple homegirls that they think sex is the most important part of the relationship. So when somebody cuts them off from sex, that's the issue, more so than a man cussing you out.
Yeah.
More so than a man beating you. More so than a man just disrespecting you in every kind of way. You more worried because he cut you off from sex. And that's the same way vice versa from man. Like, we're more worried about the sex being cut off than actually building something up.
Right.
And then understanding who she is as a woman. So that's something that we have to change in all of our mindsets.
Yeah, so what do you think that stemmed from? Like, how did we get to
We normalize stuff.
sex?
We normalize
We
stuff.
did.
Culture in
It's-
general.
Yeah, it's so many
90s.
different things.
TV.
TV,
Yeah.
right.
Like you said, you got an
Here's-
uncle that wants to sleep around everybody.
That
You got
too.
people like that, man.
Here's something that's interesting, right? Is so I'm not a millennial, right? I say that.
Semi.
Yeah, semi. That's what I don't even know the right word for it, right? But it starts with what our parents taught us, instilled in us about it. So growing up in my time, sex was still taboo. In their generation, it was completely. There was none of that, the sex talk and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. You just don't do it.
Exactly. That's and not.
Do it.
I mean, I won't say because we live what my mother's talk was, but it was real simple. It was a one sentence lesson.
Go ahead, be transparent.
I want to hear too.
But I mean, she kept it real simple. Keep it in your pants. That's now. Here's the thing. What does that mean? Now, in my growing up, you didn't ask questions about that. So one of the things I tell my kids is if you don't know, ask a question. And then I try to set an atmosphere for them to ask me questions. Do I think they really gonna ask some hard questions? Yes and no. But I think that's where it started. It did start with, Bishop Dixon says, exposure expands expectation. So kind of to your point, when you are exposed to pornography early, when you are exposed to men treating women a certain way or women treating men a certain way, that exposure expands your expectation of relationship and sex. And I would say this, sex will not sustain a marriage. You know what I mean? And I always think about people, what happens when you get married and something happens tragically that you can't control, and that person can no longer perform that act.
Exactly. What's going to happen?
Do you now divorce them because you can't have sex with them? I mean, we know the right answer, but we also know what's normalized in our culture. I think that's this is where it starts. You got to have these conversations, man.
Because going to your point, because even the same thing that I got another like great uncle, his wife's paralyzed from neck down, and I didn't know that till 3 years ago. But he said something that hit me about love that nobody really understands. That I'm more logical than most people.
Yeah.
And he said something. He made sure that everybody knew his wife's paralyzed. She's been paralyzed for 7 years. He's still with her. Still takes care of her. When she calls, she goes there to see her. He made sure that everybody knew in that building that was like my age that make sure when you tell somebody you love them, you mean it. So for me, seeing a man take care of his wife, even while she's paralyzed, even while they probably can't perform, that wasn't important for him. He made a commitment to her and under God that that's his wife. He's going to take care of her till death do them part.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love. But I think that's the issue. That's another issue we have. We put conditions on how we love.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do.
Anything else? Thoughts, comments? Sister May, you got a comment?
No, I'm just enjoying it.
So let's lead into how can we avoid, oh no, I wanted to hit on something. So how do we have these conversations in the church?
That was a deep breath.
Sorry, I think we, like you said, it was real taboo, but why are we not having these conversations? Why is it so taboo?
It's important to have these conversations in the church because a lot of times when people come into church and they're just, newborn saved or they're trying to find their place in God, that they get lost because all you hear is don't have sex before marriage.
That's it.
And then that's it.
That's
and
it.
then that's the end of the conversation. But then you have people who are like, why? What?
That was
Why is
That
it?
was me too.
Yeah, why is it like this? What are the rules and what are the and how am I supposed to go about this and how am I supposed to think about this? And so a lot of people, it's it seems like the church brushes it off and we're like, eh. And then, but at the same time, we need to have the conversation because people who are coming in, they need help, whether spiritually, mentally, they just need a guidance and. You can't have the guidance there if we're not talking about it in the church. for me, the church is supposed to be where you get help, whether it's for whatever, because it's supposed to be where God can heal you. God can heal you anywhere, but this is where you come because you're broken and you're looking for healing and you're looking for God and you're looking for something and to catch something. Yeah. And a lot of those people who are broken, they're even more broken when they enter the church, because then we're putting all these rules and stipulations on them and not explaining what needs to happen. So I don't know, maybe you can address on how we can bring it to the church.
I was just going to say, Pastor, if you want to tie in, I just was going to say, I think it requires more things like this. We need to create an atmosphere where people feel comfortable, and we got to be just flat out transparent about our own life if we've been there, and then it will allow people to open up, because next thing you know, they're going to come, hey, I had the same issue, I heard how you deal with it, so can you help me?
Do you guys have a purity group here? Does the church run one?
A purity?
A purity group.
No, but I think that's a good idea. I guess it kind of starts with us, because I think our generation is really dealing with it. So when we have our meetings, we talk about stuff like this and make it real open and comfortable to talk about our issues and our struggles.
I think that's definitely a start, right?
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like you said, you can't tell rules to somebody and then not have a community around them.
Yeah.
Yes.
To support, because if you just tell them, then they're gonna find answers on their own, good or bad.
You're right.
Well, especially for me, it's like you said, I want to have a conversation with somebody that's actually been through it. Mm-hmm. Like, you've done it, okay, let me have that conversation with you. You know what I'm saying? That's just me.
I like that, and there's value in that. I think one of the things that helped me in life, right, is knowing that everybody in church has a story. I think a lot of times we come to church expecting this person to be this, right? And the Bible said clearly, the only person that walked on this earth that did not sin was Jesus. Okay? Again, the Bible says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. It doesn't mean that we can't trust people that had a past, right? It just means that this is just my perspective and my lens. some of the generation before us that are constantly praising and that have, you see them in church and they crying and all these different things. You can best believe they got a good story.
Oh, they got a good story.
You know what I mean? But we don't build that relationship, and sometimes we don't have. Sometimes we have to be sensitive to what we share. Like, to be honest with you, or transparent with you, there's parts of my own testimony. So everybody can't handle that. Mm-hmm. Everybody can't handle that. You have to discern that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I think it does start with having these settings, this atmosphere, and then it really is going to, because the interesting part is that it's not just your age group or your age group that's dealing with that. There's some 50, 60-year-old men and women in the church that still be getting it in. Let's just be real about it. You know what I mean? And think about it. One of the things my dad recently said to me that really made an impact on me was, until you have a revelation of a difference, right? So what he was, it's a blanket statement. It applies to your whole life. So I'll use you as an example. Part of your testimony was God began to reveal some things to you about you that made a difference, and then you made a difference. Yeah. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Everybody don't got that revelation, or they might have the revelation, but they don't know where it came from. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or some of us, let's be honest, we get a revelation and be like, nah, that ain't me right now. I got to do what I do. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because Pastor Johnson said something recently. We have to remember, at the core of our problems on earth is sin. That's the core of our problems. And it's a thought process of, I can do what I want to do because this is my body, this is my house, this is, you know what? Yeah. And that's not the truth. Pride. That's not the truth. So we got to work through some of that. Yeah. I wouldn't have necessarily thought that some of the topics and the things that you brought out tonight were things that y'all were actually dealing with and verbalizing. Because it's one thing to be going through something and thinking that you in it by yourself. It's a whole nother thing when you verbalize what you've been through. Like again, when I talk to y'all about, I've been married 3 times. You know what I mean? I went from one to the next. Yeah, I had, when I left home, thought that this was what it looked like. You know, I got married the first time at 18 years old. And I thought that's what it was supposed to be. I'm tell you, that first time I realized, man, how did dad put up with this, and this? How did mom put up with this? Then I started to see it and I ran. Like, oh, no. I shouldn't have to tell you X, Y, and Z. But that's the thing that you said. When you get in a relationship like that, you bring in all of them and you bring in all of you and all that's on the table, but sometimes we don't deal with that stuff.
Well, especially our expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's some expectations that we got to get rid of. Especially as men.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Like, she's
I
not
agree.
good. Not every woman's going to cook for you.
Preach.
Yes. Put it out there, girl.
I like it.
You know what I'm saying? Not every woman's going to take with you every night.
I like it.
She ain't going to do all that, man. You got to get rid of those expectations, man. Because I'm about to say, you want some of that stuff, but what are you giving?
I like it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? The thing about compromise is that it's not one way. You know what I mean? I had to learn that myself. We do have this perception of what a man is supposed to do and a woman is supposed to do in relationship. And the reality is everybody's marriage is not like that. Every woman does not, do the budget or whatever those things are. The reality is, and it's really interesting, if you want your clothes washed and he or she won't wash your clothes, what happened to you washing your own clothes?
What happened?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but it starts with discussion.
Yeah. What I had a thought one time, because I had to kind of pull back from listening to like a lot of relationship, because then I recognized that I was trying to apply your relationship to mine.
Right.
Nah, I got to do what works for us.
Yes, you do.
And then I heard what really changed my mind about marriage was they said whenever you get married, you die. You die to yourself. For the sake of the marriage. You sometimes you can't just be like selfish. So that was dope for me. So kind of going into our closing. Just ways that we can avoid side pieces. And it may be different from somebody else, but I think it starts with one, just pull away from whatever's that instant gratification that's filling that void. Pull away from it and get into your Bible. Start building the foundation with God. And then it starts with prayer, because you got to be healed and released from all that stuff you learned growing up, and allow Him to renew your tempered mindset and allow Him to be that living water, so you won't have to thirst for those side pieces no more. Like, you will have no need for it. Lastly, we repeat what we don't repair. So if we don't repair the hurt or your perspective, then you're going to find yourself repeating old habits and new things. So I close with that. Hope y'all enjoying. Please, any last remarks that y'all have, man, tap in, dig in.
I think the biggest thing that we gotta do is, whatever your generational curse is, remove it now. Get rid of it. Just whatever you can. If you can't get rid of it, make sure that your kids don't have it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't teach your kids bad habits that you learned from being, from what your example of was a man. Don't do that. Or as a woman. Just don't do it, because you're just keeping the cycle going until someday, God forbid, your child dead or in jail. Because it's habits that you taught them, especially when it comes to sex. You know what I'm saying? We got too many young boys out here thinking that they can just take sex from a woman. Too many young women think they have to give sex to a man. It's like, that's not how it works. Like, your body's a treasure, your body's a temple. Really, you're renting your body.
That's true.
So if you are still teaching people that curse, you need to stop now and fix your ways.
I also think, to piggyback off of both of y'all, is vision. To even break generational curses and look forward to your kids, you have to have vision, and you can't have vision if you're not in tune with God, if you're not listening to what He's saying about who you are and then where He wants to take you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you can't have vision without expanding. Exposure.
Yep.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
That's
And that's
you see
Bishop.
a big house? oh, but I never thought I could have something like this, you know? But
Right.
yeah, I agree.
Bishop has a book, The Difference. It's a small book. It's probably like 75 pages. The Difference is Vision. Now, it's obviously it's geared towards the kingdom, but the reality is, you just said it, the difference is vision. Can you see? I always say, you say it, you hear it, then you start to believe it. So what are we saying to ourselves?
Yeah.
Goes back to your point of the best way to get away from it is to feed yourself with the right things. Reverend Tom and Derek says, what you feed, you grow. It kind of all encompasses when you are feeding yourself with pornography, when you're feeding yourself with self-gratification, that's what you grow. So then you keep looking for women or looking for men or whatever it is, right? But when you start feeding yourself with the word, that's what starts to come out of you in that situation, instead of cussing, or instead of when you get lonely, you be like, I know, oh boy, I know if I call him, he gonna come through. You know what I mean? And I think again, I would say this: it's not fair to the generation before us to think that they didn't have that. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. So they had it. They dealt with it different than we do, right? And y'all deal with it different than my generation did. But again, the difference is vision.
Yeah.
How do you see? Do you see yourself like God says you are, or do you see yourself as, what old boy said you are, what mom and daddy said you are, or uncle or cousin? That's I think that's where it gets to.
Yeah, like you say, you have to break that cycle.
Yes, ma'am.
Because if you don't, you will live that cycle.
I like that. You repeat what you don't repair.
Yeah.
That's right.
I like that. I like that. You repeat what you don't repair.
Well, Instagram Live, thanks for joining us. Bye.
See you next week.
Next week is about submission.
We're gonna walk through that.